Greetings and welcome to the Zero Hour Squared Classics. I am your host, Mike Trujillo. Joining us on this episode is a songwriter and a supernatural influencer. She is also promoting her new single and video for her song entitled Identity Theft. It was released in May 16th of this year. She comes to us from Oxfordshire, England. Please welcome Brocarde. Brocarde, welcome to the
Thank
Zero Hour
you.
Squared Classics. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me. I'm kind of excited to hear what questions you throw at me. But yes, thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, yes, no problem. I hope I have some good questions for you. First, I want to ask you to kind of introduce yourselves to our viewers. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started, and all of that good stuff.
Well, as Mike said, I'm right over here in the UK at the moment. I'm a singer-songwriter. My music is quite theatrical. It's heavy metal based, but there's a lot of symphonic stuff in there. My whole thing when I'm writing a song is emphasis on storytelling. I love writing, I love lyrics, and I kind of approach songs in a very, very organic way. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, I need to write a hit. It needs to be 3 minutes long. It needs to have a hook. I literally kind of go internally and say, look, this is what I want to say. And these are the sounds that I want to orchestrate those emotions. So for me, it's quite a fun process. And that kind of means as well that when I'm songwriting, I also get the full on vision for music videos and stuff. So I have like one of those crazy 360 minds where everything is kind of going on together and it's all quite cinematic. It's inspired by horror movies. There's kind of quite a dark aesthetic element. There's lots of different kind of elements that kind of make me who I am as an artist. So it's quite exciting to kind of unleash that on the world and see what people think of it.
Nice, nice. How long have you been playing as this band right now, and what got you started into music? And you have a lot of other different talents and things that you do. We mentioned the supernatural influencer, but that's just some of the things. Tell us some of those other things that you're doing, and like when you did get started.
Well, I've been doing this since I've been a tiny little kid. When I was really, really small, I knew I wanted to be on the stage. And the other thing I knew is that I loved writing. And even when I was sort of, 7 or 8, I used to be that kid who would go into like the playground at school, go into the woods, find a quiet corner and write little songs. And obviously, when you're 7 or 8, they're kind of like strange little nursery rhymes and things like that. But I've always had that outlet of writing. And that kind of coupled with wanting to be on stage, I kind of did all the little like the things that young kids do. Like I did theatre, I did musical theatre. My first vocal coach was an opera singer, and I'm quite thankful, even though that's not really who I am as an artist now. I'm quite thankful for that kind of upbringing because it's kind of given me quite like my own sound and my own voice. And like I was saying, all those different elements, like there's classical elements in my music, all of that kind of background and all of that training and kind of like my life journey has taken me to the place where I am now. So yeah, I've always been doing it. I literally wanted for such a long time to find that sound that was really, really me. Before I released an album, I'm not doing this as a 19-year-old, an 18-year-old. And to be honest, looking back, I'm not sure that I would have been ready at 19 to release music or to release an album because I was so unsure of who I actually was. And I think as I've kind of grown into myself, I've kind of learned to accept who I am. I've kind of learned to embrace all of my kind of quirks and eccentricities and things like that that make me who I am. And I think that's quite nice because some people are going to love this, some people are going to hate this, but at least I can put my hand on my heart and say, well, this is completely me. And all of those different elements, I've reached a stage where, I've got music that I'm proud of. And I appreciate that it's not going to be for everyone, but I'm kind of pleased that I've actually got songs that represent all of that kind of journey of life that I've been on.
Nice. So let's get into the style of your music to kind of for those who are not going to be able to listen to this until after they watch this interview and then they go and they say, I'm going to go listen to Brocarde now. I'm very interested. So
Yeah.
I think that one of the bands maybe comparable, kind of a contemporary of yours would be like Butcher Babies. But I think that what you add an element in that, in watching the video for Identity Theft and in reading about you and listening to more of your music, you have this kind of nice cross between Exene Cervenka from X meets Alice Cooper. So you've kind of got this kind of real old spirit and this kind of punk vibe, but also again the metal part. So, what would you describe yourself personally?
Yeah, I think like because I'm not one of those uber cool kids who could say, "Oh, my inspiration are these really cool like modern bands." Like I love things like Meatloaf and the Bat Out of Hell, like the whole kind of journey, and that does kind of have like a kind of vintage sound and the storytelling where you're going through these kind of world of emotions and things like Queen, like Bohemian Rhapsody. There's theatrical elements in that, and heavy metal heads might not love that kind of music, but all of those different elements that they kind of put into those songs, that's what I absolutely love. And I just like literally love the way that a song can take you on an absolute journey. And I'm quite, I've been writing songs for years and years and years, and I've worked with lots of different people over the years. And it was just like, oh, I want to write rock metal music. And people are like, oh, and they kind of come back with some sort of like pop production. I'm like, no, I want to write metal music. I don't want to, do like a kind of like girly kind of, fizzy kind of fake rock. I want like proper metal, like hard instruments. I don't want it to be soft. I want the contrast and the kind of different elements to come out in what I do. So, yeah, like I said, I feel like the operative word that I keep saying is journey because I mean, life is a journey for anyone, but I think musically, my journey has been very, very interesting and taken me to so many different places.
Yeah, well, you can tell by listening to it that there's so much experience, the great hooks of the song. It's just really crucial. Let's talk about the song because we know that we wanted to promote the video and the song itself. Um, Man, I don't know. Immediately, I think it rips into kind of like an existential crisis for the listener. Like right off the bat,
Yeah, well, yeah, that's probably what I was going through when I was writing it, to be honest with you. And even from it's for me, this is kind of like the start of the journey, and it's kind of like that's why, like, very at the very beginning, it's like a birth, and it's sort of almost going back to my childhood, but it's also kind of there's elements of being reborn through that. So, like the kind of how the song starts with this kind of very dramatic, strange birthing kind of scene and the baby cry, which I just found so haunting. And I was just like, yeah, we need to have a birth, we need to have a baby crying, and we need to have all these elements. And it was kind of like I'd struggled growing up with trying to kind of understand who I was. Like I had a horrible time at school. Like I was so creative, but sort of I have one of those personalities that's very introvert, extrovert. So at school, I was quite introverted and my outlet was my songwriting. And I struggled, like I didn't fit in. I didn't know how I was supposed to present myself. In some ways I had like an identity crisis. Who am I supposed to be? What's my place in the world? How should I look? How should I behave? And I think this song tackles all of those issues. And I kind of looking back at that kind of teenage self who was so lost and didn't know her place in the world. And I was just like, this kind of tackles all of those kind of feelings and all of those emotions. And when I listen to it back, because obviously there's a delay between writing a song. I mean, there isn't always, but for me, there was a delay in writing the song to releasing the song. And when I listened back and having to kind of, you hear it different, and you're like, wow, that's what I was going through. That's what I was kind of almost not rebranding, but almost rebirthing myself, and kind of a sort of period of acceptance and looking back at, growing up, looking back at being a teenager. And then it's like, well, now I'm here and this is still my fight because there's still times and places where I feel like, oh, I don't fit in here. I feel very alien, that kind of whole concept of, giving birth to an alien. Like there are situations in life where I feel like quite alien and I don't identify with the social circle around me. And I think so many people feel like that. And what I would say now to anyone experiencing that, if you feel that, just take comfort in the fact that it's not you, you're just in the wrong room. You will find your people and you will find the room that appreciates you, and you will find your audience and you will find your friendship group, and you will find people who are your ride or dies. You will find that. And as a younger kid, I was like, oh, this is, should I be liking that kind of music? Should I be wearing this kind of clothes? But yeah, that kind of journey to acceptance. And I think that's what the song is essentially about for me. And I hope people listen and go, oh yeah, I get this. It's like I don't write things in a straightforward way, but that is the kind of, if you analyze it and dig deeper, you'll find lots of little subcontexts and meanings hidden in there. So yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's a little bit of a journey, and I keep saying that, but yeah, the song is, it takes you on a little bit of a journey. But yeah, I think I'm pleased that that's the song that I'm coming out with now, and I think the video was so much fun to film. It was filmed in a haunted prison, which kind of just added to the whole kind of weird element of it. But yeah, I loved filming it, and I hope people love listening to it.
I listened to the song yesterday probably about 20 times. I just
Oh
really started
wow.
getting into it and I started breaking it down. I didn't break out too many lyrics, but I love the way it just kicks off with, welcome to the human race. There's no uterus walls to hide behind. And that already is food for thought because it could go so many different ways. I interpreted the song in a couple of ways. I sort of thought identity theft. I thought maybe it had to do with maybe technology kind of taking away our spirit a little bit. And then I played it for somebody else, and they listened to it. They were like, "Is this kind of a song about abortion in some way?" And so I wanted to ask you, were there any elements of there's so much interpretation in this song, just this one song alone by you. Is there anything else that we can gather from this song?
I mean, someone did say that, but it actually has nothing to do with sort of abortion or that kind of political message or that kind of political agenda. But I just love the way that you had two completely different interpretations of my work. And I think that is the fun thing about being an artist, because it might mean one thing to me, but if someone listens to it and they identify it and like relate it to something different, then I absolutely love that. And I think as well, like the kind of conformity of mainstream society, when you're kind of into metal music or you're kind of slightly gothic in appearance, there is that element of kind of being outside of the main culture. There is that kind of feeling. So I think, and also the way you live your life as well. Like I'm very non-generic in my way of thinking. Like I know a lot of people have a certain pattern of life that they feel that they should follow, and you kind of, there's a course in life which everyone seems to take. And yeah, it's kind of not really taking making fun of that way of life, but it's just observational, I suppose. Like this is the human race. We're all kind of in this kind of army that's controlled by forces outside of our control. And even our thoughts are manipulated to a point of view based on the information that we have access to. So there's so many kind of subcategories that song kind of covers, really. So it's kind of lovely to hear people's interpretations, because none of it's wrong, but I would say there's no kind of abortion message or anything like that. But in terms of like culture and society, then absolutely.
Right, right. When so you worked with the producer Dave Collier or Chris Collier, excuse me, and he worked with Whitesnake. He worked with bands like Korn. What was it like working with him? How did he what was he able to get out of you? What was he able to capture that set forth the rest of the songs and their structure?
Well, it's quite funny. Like I've known Chris for 10 years. And when I met Chris, he wasn't working with Korn. In fact, but when the first song I wrote with Chris, he hadn't done any Korn. I actually hadn't heard any of his music. Like I'd gone over to LA, I was looking for a new producer. I had this absolute vision for a song, and that the first song we recorded was Last Supper. And I had this ridiculous vision. I had like pages and pages of how I wanted this to sound. And he's just like, we basically just took a chance on each other. I hadn't heard his work. He hadn't, worked with me as an artist, but he allowed me the freedom without rules to do what I wanted to do in the studio. And even explaining what emotion and what instruments I wanted to put in each part, like he took that and somehow almost read my mind in some instances. Like now, when I work with him, I don't even have to say anything. I can literally just sing a song, show him the lyrics, explain the vision, and he will just like make it better. He will add like the production elements around it and make it what the songs that you hear today. And I met so many different producers. I had so many different conversations, and the conversation that kept coming up is, who do you want to sound like? And I was just like not playing that game. I was like, I just want to sound like me, but these are the elements I want to encompass. And so many people were so fixated on getting that hit, like, oh, blah, 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 like is topping the charts right now. So we've got to do that. And I was like, no, because that person is already doing that. I want to do me, but I want it to be amazing. And I found it quite shocking how many high-end producers didn't get the fact that artists wanted to be individual, and that was shocking to me. But with Chris, he just gave me the freedom to be myself and be as experimental as possible. Like some of the songs are like 7 or 8 minutes long because that's my vision, and of course you have to kind of have that horrible task of chopping them down to make them radio friendly and listener friendly. And yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey, but I am quite thankful to have found someone like that who will just give me the freedom to be myself and to be creative. And I think that's like helped me get the sound that is me, because you've got my British kind of voice and so many producers are like, oh, you need to put an American twang to it. I'm like, no, because I'm not American. Like that would just be so bizarre. Like I speak British, like that's my accent is very strong, and I'm not going to start putting Americanisms into it. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but for a British person, it just didn't make any sense to me. It's like, that's not how I would talk it. So why am I going to sing it like that? And all of those little things have kind of allowed me to, and also the experimentation of it. Like I will do crazy things with my voice. Like I will be screaming or, making gremlin noises and just having the freedom to do that. And also like things like choirs and stuff, like I do all my backing vocals and I sing everything in different voices and different tones and layer it all up. And yeah, just all of that, it just feels like so me, because that is just my voice and doing really weird different things, and trying to be like a vibrato old lady or trying to make it young or screaming or talking or whispering, and to go through all those elements in a song, I think that kind of adds to the theatrical elements of it.
Can you do a gremlin sound for us?
You, a little bit of a gremlin.
Okay. Kind of a midday gremlin right there, right?
Yeah, like a gremlin, like, okay, this is, you put me on the spot, gremlin.
What kind of body of work do you have? How many albums? Where can we find all of the material of Brocarde?
I've released several singles. I am yet to release my debut album, but I have it ready. So towards the end of the year, there will be a debut album, but I have 2 or 3 singles up on Spotify, YouTube. You can hear the kind of sound and the direction that I'm going in. Like, they're all very like cinematic, all very theatrical. So yeah, there's a good 5 or 6 songs already up on Spotify and all of the usual places you'll be able to take a listen.
Nice. I want to go back to the music video because it's a fun video. You're a very stunning and beautiful lady, but on the video you look scary and weird as if you were had been in an insane asylum for a very long time. You mentioned that the video was shot at an old prison, Gloucester. Can you tell us that?
Yeah, Gloucester Prison, yeah.
Okay. That's crazy. That's weird. We have a prison here in New Mexico that there was a big riot, and several people have gone and done ghost hunts and stuff there. And I haven't
Ah,
been there, but it's eerie, and that always intrigues me. What was the feeling like making the video in that place?
I think it like I have the ability to communicate with spirits, which is a relatively recent thing that has kind of happened in my life, and I now see ghosts and I can communicate with spirits. I kind of now when I go into a building like that, I'm very sensitive, so I can sense if there is like paranormal activity within those walls. And I think it's normal. And I go ghost hunting, and I have a separate YouTube channel called the Brocarde Show, and I do haunted locations, and I go in there for the purpose of, finding ghosts and telling the ghost stories of that building. And it was different with this because obviously my main mission and my first job was to film a music video. So I wasn't going in there thinking, where are the ghosts? Where are the ghost stories? But I was like so steadfast in my mission, but I was having to tune out things that were happening during filming in that location because this place is, I mean, everyone says they're the most haunted prison in the UK. Every prison in the UK is apparently the most haunted. But what's quite interesting about this site is they're actually excavating for bodies. So half of the ground is dug up and they are sort of taking bodies out of the ground and recovering them. So that is slightly disturbing anyway.
Oh,
It's basically a sort of burial ground where they're unearthing bodies. So there's just lots of interesting stories around that location. And I would say as well, after dark, this place is completely pitch black. I mean, we had to have the lights turned off for like aesthetic reasons, but when you're there in a haunted prison wing, you know, one or two people, completely dark. Like you can literally hear voices, see apparitions, see footsteps. And it's very unsettling because it's so big.
yeah.
Like it's not like a small room where you can see, you know, you can like lights on, we can see everything. There are like cells, and there's like a condemned cell where they had so many hangings and executions there. So people spent their last days in that prison, and hundreds of people were hung there. So there's a lot of paranormal energy, which kind of I I'm into like the real elements and the real ghost stories. But of course, like for creativity, I love the horror aesthetic as well. So for me, it's kind of more real than it would be to someone watching a horror movie because I actually have experienced very real things in terms of ghosts and spirits. But yeah, to film in a location like that, I think adds a layer of inspiration as well because if you're just in a studio with a kind of backdrop behind you, it's very, very difficult to draw from that situation. But when there's all kinds of like craziness going on around you, it's quite inspiring, especially if you kind of have to put yourself in the place where you are kind of a prisoner and kind of stuck there. It's quite fun.
Nice. How did you get connected to talking or communicating with the spiritual world? How did that kind of come about?
Well, actually, it's really, really strange because growing up, I wasn't a ghost hunter. I had a very, very dramatic paranormal encounter 2 or 3 years ago. I was visited by the spirit of a Victorian soldier, and this was during lockdown. It was a weird time in the world. Like people were more isolated than usual. People were confined to their homes. It was just a strange, strange time. And I had a really strange encounter one evening. I couldn't sleep very well. And I was visited by this ghost. It was one of those encounters that changed quite a lot because it was more than just an experience. It was something that I couldn't shake. And up until that point, I couldn't say, oh, ghosts exist. Before that, I was unsure. I was curious and I was interested to hear people's stories. But that evening, I was like, there is definitely, definitely something else out there. And it kind of changed my life because coming forward and speaking about that kind of gave me a confidence to share who I am. And obviously, when you share things like that, there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of people having an opinion on that. So it's kind of like hardened me and allowed me to be more myself. And now I feel quite comfortable talking about it. And it's also put me on quite a fascinating life journey because all of my life, all I've wanted to do is be a singer and be a performer. But now I have this kind of really genuine interest in the afterlife, in paranormal activity, in ghost hunting. And it's kind of taken me all the way around the world. And I've come over to America to interview people who've had paranormal encounters. I've gone into haunted prisons in America. I've gone to haunted locations. And it's still so, so fascinating for me to go into these places, to hear these stories, to feel things, to pick up on things. Like it's so, so intriguing for me. And I love talking about it and I love learning more about it. And I'm quite happy to have that in conjunction with my music as well, because filming for YouTube, there's an element of creativity in it. You know, if you're a performer, you like being in front of the camera, you like talking to people, and it's just a subject matter that I'm so passionate about. And I'm quite, at the time when something like that happens and you have a paranormal encounter, it's unsettling. And for a long time, I didn't want it. I didn't want to be able to see spirit. I didn't want to communicate with ghosts. I just didn't want it in my life. But now I've learned to accept it. I kind of appreciate it as almost like, I don't know, someone changed the way I was looking at it and said, look, you should just be thankful that these people are communicating with you. You know, you shouldn't be scared. You should embrace it and see where it takes you. Keep your mind open, keep learning, and see what the purpose of all that journey is. So, yeah, I love it. I love talking about it. I think there is so much more to the world than humans understand. And yeah, I think it's cool to be able to share that element of my life as well.
Very nice, very nice. Brocarde, this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you and getting to introduce you to our audiences out here in the Southwest and around the world. This is a World Wide Web. It's a YouTube show. So it's very nice to have you on this program. I wish you much continued success. I got a couple of more quick questions. Are you going to be doing any touring? Have you been starting to do some live shows in regards to the music?
I'm definitely going to be getting out there. I'm definitely going to be doing live shows. There's nothing in the diary to date. The one thing I would say, taking into all of those elements that I've explained about my music, like the way I see the live show is ridiculously ambitious, and I have a very specific vision, which is very, very expensive.
Right.
It involves like I can see like orchestral, like, you know, orchestra on stage with me. I think it's going to be very theatrical, like you mentioned Alice Cooper earlier, all those elements of that kind of like shock horror stage show. And those things as a new artist are almost impossible. Like financially you would need, and that's how I want people to see my show. So it's trying to manage how I want people to see it and what's practical. So I will be touring, but I've got a million and one challenges to how I bring that show to life. And I'm working through them at the moment. But I would say, like, towards the end of the year and definitely next year, that's going to be something that's on the agenda. And as well, like, I want people to hear the album and to live with the album. And then I'll take the album on the road and kind of, yeah, I just kind of, when you're like an independent artist as well, like myself, like you have a million and one things to worry about, and that feels quite overwhelming. And I want people to experience it the way I see it in my mind, which is a huge challenge, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Right, right. One more time, tell us the name of the other programs that we can watch your YouTube channels or shows.
Um, so I have a website where you will find everything, and that is brocarde.com. And within the website, there's several different sections. You can find all my music videos. You can also find the Brocarde Show, which is a dedicated YouTube channel. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. There's ghost hunts, there's events. There's also other band interviews. Like I talk to bands a lot and interview them as well for my channel, particularly if you want to know if your favorite band has seen a ghost. That's the question that pops up a lot. So yeah, but if you want to go to YouTube, it's called The Brocarde Show. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Brocarde. So yeah, put my name into Google and yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff will pop up, I guess.
Okay, very cool. Well, once again, the new single is Identity Theft. It's actually been out a couple of weeks. There is a song for it. You can find it on what platforms? Pretty much everything, right?
Yeah, pretty much Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, all of the usual places.
And look up the video because the video is beautiful. It's a lot of fun, and you get to see a creepy prison with a creepy alien baby and Brocard on there as well. I wanted to ask you one more thing that I just forgot. You have another single coming out in July called Feminist. Want to tell us quickly about that?
Yeah, I think this one is more straight to the point. Like I wanted to kind of explore what feminism meant to me. I mean, there's so much debate on the internet. You know, of course, I'm a feminist. We all should be. But the kind of different variations of that and how it can mean different things to different people. I mean, being a strong, independent woman, whether that means you go to church every Sunday, whether that means you know, embrace your body and show off everything that you have, like all of those things are acceptable is as a form of feminism. And I think that was quite an empowering message. And I always get, and I hate this question, you know, like females in metal, females in rock. It's just like, no, we're just all people making rock and metal music. Yes, I might be a female, but it shouldn't be segregated. You don't hear, oh, men of metal. Like,
Right.
we're still in the minority over here. But I think that whole song explores what feminism means to different people. And I think that's an important message. I feel like it's a funny topic because now in 2025, it shouldn't even be a discussion to a point. But I still think there are challenges that you face as a woman. And I still think you should celebrate each other. And, I think it's an interesting topic. And I think whatever defines feminism to you is completely okay.
All right. Brocarde, again, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that we are able to do this again. And I hope to see you play in the States sometime. I think you would be a lot of fun to check out, and I want to wish you continued success. Again, Identity Theft is out, and Feminist will be out in July, correct?
Yes, yeah, in the middle of July. So as soon as the date's out there, it will be all over my socials, all over my website. So yeah, if anyone's enjoyed listening to this, then yeah, please come over, say hi, follow, like, subscribe, do all the stuff because it really helps. Like it's I love hearing from people. And I also love hearing from people who've encountered spooky stuff. So if you've been to a haunted location and you have a ghost story, then yeah, share it with me because I love all that stuff.
All right. All right. Very well. Thank you very much, Brocarde. It's been an absolute pleasure. You have a great day, and we'll be checking you out and spreading the word about identity theft as well as feminists. And take care. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.